Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, awesome ones. So grateful for each and every one of you. So happy that you have chosen to listen to the show, that you have chosen to interact with the show. You have also chosen to share the show. I totally appreciate it. And I know that those that are getting on board on the Fearless Freedom Tribe also appreciate your generosity in sharing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I just wanted to start with that. So as you guys know, I am an emergency physician and I am seeing patients clinically. And this has been a very interesting time for everybody involved. And, I've had to face some additional fears, and I shared that in great detail in the episode talking about my new fear going into work regarding, dealing with patients who have potential or do have actually the infection. And so I would refer back to that one for sure. But I just wanted to say that I am so grateful for the community and how the community has really stood by and been very supportive and provided us as the people who are working clinically so much support. And that comes in the form of thank yous, that comes in the form of actual tangible items like PPE, which is personal protective equipment, that has come in the form of food during a shift. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It really is a testament of how amazing we are as human beings and how we can come together when there's a crisis. So it really helps to alleviate my fear that I discussed in that episode. And it also helps to alleviate the fear and increase the morale amongst the team taking care of our very sick citizens. So thanks again for that. I just want to put that out there. All right, so the other thing is, you guys know that the whole point of the show and the whole reason why the show got started was because I have a fear of public speaking, and I have been working on facing that fear boldly through two modalities. One was this podcast, or is this podcast, it's not past tense, and the other is getting on stages in front of more people and really flexing that muscle and making a contribution, right? So obviously, I've had a ton of speaking engagements that have been canceled because of great reasons. We should be staying home and distancing ourselves socially, so physically, so that we can flatten the curve. But on the flip side, one of the things that I try to practice, and I'm trying my very best to implement in my own life, is to have multiple streams of income. So one of those income streams was speaking. And so now that income stream has been removed, it's been a little bit of a challenge. So it just really speaks to how you have to be as an entrepreneur. You have to literally have flexibility. You have to be able to pivot at a drop of a dime in order for you to adapt and then ultimately thrive. So part of switching things up for myself is I've been doing more virtual stages. So I've been getting on more colleagues' past podcasts, and I have been doing virtual summits and radio shows and things like that, in the hopes that I can step past my own fear and actually do some form of virtual package that would be income generator. So that's where I'm at. So of course, the podcasting course is up. It is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the person running it, but I am very excited about it because it is just something that I got introduced to, was, basically advanced into through a course. And so I just want to pass that on so that others can also benefit from that particular push. And so the podcasting course, you can find that at podcastinglaunch.com. There's a webinar up there on the landing page, and you can learn about whether or not podcasting is for you. And if it is, then I would love to have you join me in the course so that you can step off that fence of fear that's stopping you from letting your voice be amplified and heard by your tribe. So there's that. The other thing is I have in the mix, and I'm kind of cooking up, is I'm working on developing a mastermind that will benefit you guys. So I need your help in this. I need for you to tell me what you would like to learn about in such a mastermind. Tell me what you want to learn about. I'll put it together. It'll be something that is very affordable to attend, and you'll get amazing value from it. And we will be able to definitely make some amazing inroads. So hit me up with what you think you'd like to learn about from the mastermind. And that's all I have for you guys today. I'm super excited about today's guest, though, because she is going to bring it like, you know, our guests do. She's going to give us some great insight about sleep and, you know, how we can deal with the craziness that's going on right now. So check it out. Hello, Fearless Freedom family. Oh, we are back, and I am super excited because I have on the show today Dr. Singh, and I am so excited to hear what she has to say about what's going on and how we can deal with it, because that is her area of expertise. Dr. Singh, you want to tell the Fearless Freedom Tribe all about yourself and what you're up to?
Okay, sure. I am a sleep medicine specialist. And as for my background, you know, after I finished my medical school, I did a psychiatry residency at Mayo Clinic, and then did a sleep medicine fellowship at the Henry Ford Sleep Disorder Center, which is in Detroit, Michigan. And I have been in clinical practice here since 2005. So basically diagnosing and treating sleep disorders in people of all ages, and also involved in some research. And, you know, in our clinic, in our research center, the focus is on insomnia, excessive and normal sleepiness, shift work, and the long-term effects of alcohol and drugs on sleep. So, yeah, that's my background.
Awesome. And, you know, this is a fun fact because, you know, we're both in Michigan, and it's always nice to chat with and encounter colleagues who are here in the state of Michigan. It's not my home state, but it has now become my home state. So very excited. So, you know, there is a lot of talk going around about sleep and how it can affect us. How does sleep actually, or the lack thereof, actually affect us?
Okay, so first let's start with some background. So what is sleep? So sleep is a normal, reversible behavioral state in which there is this disengagement from the environment, and there's unresponsiveness to the environment, right? So we know, number one, it's reversible, which is how we differentiate it from coma. There's a very species-specific duration and a species-specific posture. And so for adult human beings, we should be sleeping about between 7 to 9 hours every 24 hours. So that's about a third of our lives. And so think about it, Charmaine, if sleep wasn't serving an absolutely essential function, spending a third of our life sleeping would be a colossal waste of time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And a major mistake from the evolutionary point of view, especially if you think about how vulnerable we are to predators and any other threats in the environment when we're lying there with our eyes shut. So when people ask what the function of sleep is, so think, I always tell people, well, at the most basic level, sleep forces you, both the mind and the body, to be inactive. So it forces in inactivity, and therefore rest and restoration can occur. So, you know, really, sleep is restorative to every part of your body. Every function of your body gets restored and while you're asleep. For example, your brain, we now know that while you're asleep, blood rushes through your brain, and it's like power washing the brain. So, that is extremely essential.
Okay.
And of course, for all the rest of the body, all your physiological functions, all the energy storing restoration happens while you're asleep.
Wow.
So I know to come back to your question, there's one more thing that we should talk about, which will help clarify for the audience the role that sleep might play in today's world, right? So the second thing your audience should know about is our circadian rhythms. So circadian rhythms are an intrinsic time-keeping clock that regulates almost all physiological functions on a daily basis. And so for us human beings, the master clock is located in our brain, and it's reset every day by the exposure to light and dark, which happens when you're exposed to light during the day and darkness at night.
Okay.
So in addition to that master clock you have in your brain, you also have local clocks in almost every cell in our body, which is under local control, and it's controlled by that master clock. So think of that master clock like a master conductor, coordinating all the timing and function of all the clocks, and therefore all the functions in the body. And so whenever we think about our body functions, almost every biological function is regulated by that circadian clock and your sleep-wake cycle. And both so the sleep-wake cycle and the circadian clock have slowly evolved together, so that the timings of our internal events relative to each other and to the external environment is coordinated in such a fashion. It helps in maximizing the survival of species. So I'll give you an example. For example, so there is a certain time, because we are diurnal animals, we were just talking about how our circadian rhythms and our sleep-wake cycle sort of give us a distinct biological advantage. So let me explain this a little bit further. So the actual time that somebody should be awake and interacting with the external world, or should be asleep and avoiding the external world is coordinated. And it's part of the survival strategy that we have developed. So for example, there are some animals who are like nocturnal animals, right? They're awake at night, they're asleep during the day, because that's how they avoid maybe being preyed upon.
Okay.
So that's just something to keep in mind. And human beings, we've evolved so that we can so that we're typically should be diurnal, which means that we should be awake during the day and we should be sleeping at night. And then in addition to that, there is something called chronotypes, which I'm sure you've heard about, which is basically this biological predisposition we have that modifies whether somebody prefers to be more active in the morning or is a morning lark versus the evening or being a night owl. And that too is genetically driven. And maybe that is also something that evolved over time. So if you were a tribe of people, there were different chronotypes, so that at night while you were asleep, and therefore we were we were likely to be preyed upon. There were some people who were night owls and they could keep the night shift, and keep us safe.
Yeah.
So that's how it would work.
Wow. Yeah. So that's fascinating, because of course I have interesting experience with that, because I've been working night shift for
15 years now.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying about, the disposition that we have innately for the time of day that we function best. And also cherishing the amount of sleep that is obtained. I have to say that I haven't been perfect at this, because over the years, I've definitely had to make some adaptations that may be suboptimal, but have allowed for this to be a success. But yeah, no, it's always very interesting to hear that, because, knowing that it's like a two-prong scenario, what you are at base as far as whether you're a night owl or not. And then also recognizing that, you really do need to have the sufficient amount of time for your body to recharge and replenish. So that was an awesome breakdown. Thank you so much for doing that.
Right. And you absolutely hit the nail on the head. So you want to keep both things into account all the time, as much as possible.
Right. No, absolutely. And then, so, we talk about how it recharges us. You talked about how there is a link to us as, individually as people, as to how much sleep we actually need, and as to, how we go about our daily patterns. What do you think, or how do you think the fact that now we are in a situation where we are very stressed, right? Everybody's pretty stressed. We are in a challenging time, uncharted territory, essentially. Like, how do you think that is impacting our sleep patterns?
So, obviously that is going to cause more difficulty in initiating or maintaining sleep. So I would say that when we think about all the restorative functions sleep has on every part of your body, the two main functions that are gaining attention right now, of course, it's its effect on the immune system, and its effect or its interaction with stress. Because and we can divide this and talk and address both of them separately. So did you want to, should we talk about the stress part first?
Yes, because I think that's definitely a thing that is on top of mind for everybody at this moment. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it.
Okay. Right. So I what I tell people is typically we're always telling our patients, or in the news there's always talk about how you should make sure you get enough time in bed and get enough sleep. But sometimes, in addition to that, there is also this additional thing that happens to you, phenomena that happens, in which, despite opportunity to sleep, you may still have difficulty either falling asleep or staying asleep, or not feeling restored despite spending enough time in bed. And that is, it's basically what the definition of insomnia is. Now, the reason why it's essential to address insomnia is because of a couple of things. Number one is, for the longest, when people thought that insomnia, we always thought that insomnia was a symptom of another mental disorder, or a symptom of and some other underlying disorder, as a result of which people were sleeping poorly. And that if you treated whatever that underlying disorder was, insomnia or the poor sleep itself would get better. And what's happened is that over the last few years, this has been debunked, because there's been multiple studies that show that if you just treat the poor sleep, or you treat the insomnia, in fact, the attending disorders of anxiety or stress actually get better. So number one, and so independently, we know just the presence of poor sleep is in fact a risk factor for other mental health disorders. And if you don't address the sleep part, the mental health issues don't get better. Right. So with that background, your question was, what do we do when we know there is stress already?
Right.
And we know that there is stress out there, and there is anxiety. So the first thing always, Sharman, is to recognize it, right? And to maybe name it, to name what is going on with us. And maybe it is understandable to be a little anxious about the circumstances of what's happening around us, right?
Absolutely.
So it's important for people to realize that, first of all, these feelings are normal. They are to be expected. I mean, who wouldn't feel anxious about, a virus that you really can't see? There's an enemy out there you can't really see.
Yes.
And, and it appears to be, spreading at a logarithmic rate. Like every 3 to 6 days, it seems that the patients are doubling.
That's correct.
Right. So that, yes, that is really, really scary. Now, anxiety is, first of all, we have to realize that normal fear response that typically occurs in people initially is protective, right? It's warning you that you have to change your ways somehow,
right?
So that we can focus on something that can might help us take us out of danger. And we were, collectively we were making fun of the fact, but how people were, maybe panicking and buying, toilet paper,
yes,
etc.
yes,
right? But
exactly.
that was a symptom of anxiety, right? That was because it gave people something to do, and especially since it doesn't look like there's an end very close. Like there's no end point that we can see. Right at this point. But now that we know that, as we are learning more and more about this virus, the first thing we have to do is we do have to pick and choose all the things that we can control,
right,
and things that we cannot. And anyway, but that was my long-winded answer of coming to the answer of, why sleep is important. Because one thing we can control, one thing we can help is our sleep.
Okay.
Right. So now that we're in this world where maybe you're working from home, maybe you don't have a very set schedule. Maybe your kids, most probably your kids are at home,
right,
and we don't know when this is going to end. Then working on things that you can control will give us a better control over our stress and anxiety. Right. So
absolutely.
and that is why, even though we're going to talk about all the things at night that we can do to help us sleep better, that always begins by what all the things that you're going to do during the day.
Got it.
So it becomes really, really important, for example, to have some sort of a schedule or structure, because having schedule and structure helps give us some amount of control.
Okay.
Being a sleep doctor, I will tell you, I would want your schedule during the day to comprise of enough exposure to light, because that will help strengthen our circadian rhythms. And so if you can go outdoors for a little bit and get enough sunlight, or get exposed to really, really bright light during the day, that's a good thing.
Okay.
We know that regular exercise during the day is something that helps you sleep better at night.
Okay.
We know eating, again, scheduling, even in the way of eating meal times on a regular basis, is something that's going to help you sleep better at night. Because if you eat too close to your bedtime,
mm-hmm.
especially if you eat, a high fat, very spicy foods close to your bedtime, that is going to prevent you from falling asleep.
Okay.
And then again, something that you were mentioning earlier, maybe, while we were talking about this before we even started recording. So even though we're talking about social distancing, what we mean really is physical distancing.
Correct. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's
right. So all the times that we've complained, especially being physicians, or complained about how technology is kind of taking away from people making connections. Well, this is a time where we can use technology to make sure we make connections.
Absolutely.
Right? Pick up the phone, do what you and I are doing, FaceTime. So don't bottle things up. Make sure you reach out, make those connections. So doing those things during the day will itself help when you're going to go to bed at night. Now, the first thing I would tell people is that at night, you want to go to bed at a time.
Oh, to have a set schedule for your sleep time? Okay.
Yes. But also, now that we are working from home, Charmaine, maybe we can now sleep more aligned to our own biological bedtimes. Right? So for example, if on the weekends I was actually going to bed at midnight and waking up at 8:30, because that's the way that I'd like to sleep. Okay. Now, because I don't need to wake up at 6 a.m, then that's what I should do on a regular basis.
Okay.
So keep that in account. The second thing is, take into account that different family members have different have different rhythms and have different chronotypes. So, for example, teenagers and youngsters may be more of night owls. So to keep that in mind, because they may want to go to bed even later and wake up even later, but you don't want them to go to, you don't want to be totally out of sync, because then, that comes with its own set of problems, and you're not able to help them out at all at night, right? I mean, then
right,
because there's awake while you're asleep. So that brings me to the second point at night is, in addition to regularity and timing, exposure to light at night is not a good thing. And so for most of us at night, if we can avoid having handheld devices like our cell phones or tablets at night too late to very close to our bedtime, that itself will reduce the exposure to light, because most of these handheld devices, they're backlit, they have LED lights built in them.
Yes, I do.
And then they can prevent us from falling asleep.
Okay.
And I can see that you recognize that, because all of us are guilty of that sometimes.
Oh yes. Yes, I am very guilty of that.
So if you can build a 45-minute schedule in which it's like a winding down schedule, in which you can have a hot bath or a shower, any kind of stretching exercises, maybe some form of meditation and prayer, maybe reading a book, an actual book, or listening to a book or a podcast. All of these help you relax and unwind to help you get ready for bed. And the video games, or being on the laptop, working all the way to the time you actually want to fall asleep, that is not, people think it's not a relaxation, it's more of a distraction. And so if you can differentiate that's helps. I would say simple things like not drinking caffeine too close to your bedtime, not drinking alcohol too close to your bedtime, keeping your bedroom really cold and dark and quiet. All of
that's how my husband likes to keep the bedroom.
Yes. So
meanwhile, I'm freezing, but that's okay.
Well, so I it's preferable if the room is it's cold, but then make sure you have heavy bed covers, because you don't want to be uncomfortable, because then you're not going to sleep either.
Right.
So that's the compromise. And then make sure that you there was something that I just thought of, right? So that stress you were talking about,
Yes.
Oftentimes, especially if you're able to keep yourself really busy through the day, Charmaine, and keep going, then when you finally get into bed, then you allow yourself to think, and that's when people become really stressed out. And so there is something called worry time.
Okay.
So earlier in the evening, if you can sit down with maybe I don't know, your laptop or a journal with a pen, and actually write down the things that you're worried about, or like make a to-do list for the next day, or that sort of helps, because you've done it and you've taken care of it, so that at night when you're trying to fall asleep and you start thinking all these things, then you've already done it. It's almost, it's like creating that control, like getting that sense of control back on some of the things that we can get control over.
Awesome. This is awesome. I'm writing all these tips down because I'm going to have highlights in the show notes because these tips are awesome. Oh my goodness. Yes, no. And it sounds like, and in talking with people within our profession, as well as neighbors and family, that outlet for the worry will be very powerful. People started implementing that because there is a lot of that. And there is also not a lot of the expression of how we're feeling about what's happening and the things that we're concerned about as far as what's happening. So that is an amazing tip that would be very helpful to the audience, because, that's something that we don't typically, some of us do journal, but we don't focus the journaling per se on what are the issues that are going to keep me up tonight, So that is great. Thank you for that, Pearl. That's going to be really, really helpful. I see it.
The thing is that we shouldn't underestimate the sheer breadth and width of this problem that is the coronavirus. Our lives have changed, right?
Yes, completely. Completely.
So and my suspicion is that as this time goes on and we begin to feel the duration of this threat, and that grief that's going to come from just the anxiety that this is going to be going on for at least the next 30 days or longer, and because there's so much uncertainty, I think that itself is a constant source of stress. And again, it's just something, if we can just try to control the things that we are able to control, that itself sort of is the only thing that maybe we can do in the current times.
Wow. Yes. That is a bridle for our fear. It really is.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. Yeah, because we really do get caught up. And other things that can help are literally limiting your exposure to media, right? Because every time you get on there, there's not really a lot of positive items that are being shared. Nobody's talking about, the good that has come out of this crisis. They are, but not as much as they're talking about all the bad things that are happening. So if we can, like you said, really focus on the things we can control, like, for example, sleep, utilizing the tips that you have, given to us today, I think that will help us to really mitigate the fear that we're having and the stress that we're feeling, and really, it takes our mind off of it, which I think is amazing. So thank you for sharing that, because I know I'm thankful for that, because I'm going to start my journaling again and do the worry time, because it sounds so good. It's helpful.
Yes. What I was going to say is that I would say deal with it the same way that we would have dealt with fear. And again, I'm referring back to, this conversation we had before we even started recording. But, the fears when we were building our careers, you want to create an ecosystem of good friends and mentors around you.
Absolutely.
Have these really, very candid conversations and with your spouse, your partners, your friends, etc., and concentrate on that day itself. Like, just concentrate on living on the same day. And I think that's something that we all think that we should always do, but we don't. But in the times of crisis like this, I mean, that is one thing we can do, is just concentrate on the day today rather than thinking about tomorrow.
Right.
And that itself should be a motto for the current world.
Yes, we definitely have to get that message out, because, man, I really believe that there are a lot of people who just do not have that particular insight. And as a consequence, their stress level is just, increasing and increasing. And then it hurts everything else. It hurts their ability to replenish, which we talked about what sleep does for us. And on the flip side, because we are not able to recharge and replenish, our systems are functioning at less than optimal levels. And maybe that might make us more susceptible to getting sick. Not necessarily from corona, but getting sick in general.
Right.
So, this is great. This is great. Absolutely love it. Awesome. All right. So, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, so you mentioned how, gave us great tips, which is awesome. So these are all things that we can practically do. You also mentioned, setting up the sleep time. So how can people, I guess this would be a quick way to figure this out, but like, how can people figure out whether they're a night owl or whether they're actually somebody who functions really well in the daytime? Like, how can they do that if maybe they haven't figured it out before? What's a simple way that they can do that?
So once we finish this recording, Charmaine, remind me, I'll send you a couple of links. So there are two very simple, clinically validated questionnaires. It's like, it's a questionnaire that you fill out, and it helps you figure out whether you're a night owl or a morning person. And, intuitively, you sort of know what you are, right? You sort of know how your energy levels change during the day. For example, I know I'm a morning person, and
Gotcha.
I feel like really alert in the morning. I actually get like the best work done before 3 p.m. After that, I'm more likely to be tired and fatigued. Now, so I would say that the best thing to do would be one can use that questionnaire that we were just talking about. I just want to tell people that in addition to that questionnaire, paying attention to light exposure becomes really important, because the way our biological clock, that circadian clock we were talking about, knows that you're ready to go to sleep is because under dim light or in darkness, your brain secretes a hormone called melatonin. And melatonin signals to your brain that you're now ready to sleep. So it's a nighttime, it's a darkness hormone.
Okay.
And unfortunately, so 100 years ago, or 150 years ago, we were typically going to sleep once the sun came down, because it was expensive to burn oil,
right,
to have artificial oil, and your circadian rhythms, that clock, it can tell. Sunlight and artificial light will shift the signal, but moonlight and firelight does not. So it would, it would be ready to sleep you'd be ready to sleep at your normal, at the time that your brain was actually ready to sleep. Unfortunately, the signals that our brain receive nowadays are not very clear, because you and I may be reading on our iPad
Oh yes,
at night.
yes, we are reading on
So
devices.
that's just right. So that is, and so there was a study, and what they did is they took a bunch of night owls and they took them camping, and they found that even though they were night owls, they were not they were not that severe of night owls. Once you took away the artificial light, they were actually going to bed. They were actually able to fall asleep earlier, because they were no longer that they didn't have that artificial light that made going to sleep even more difficult.
Oh, interesting.
So just something for people to keep in mind. That's why we now have the luxury to go to bed later, because we don't have to wake up in the morning to be somewhere, to get into a car. We don't, so the correct way to approach it would be to try and get at least 30 to 45 minutes without any electronics, without artificial light. Read, and under dim light, etc., and that'll allow you to fall asleep.
Fantastic. No, that's awesome. It's of course, my story is a little different, because when I'm not working, obviously I have the daytime schedule. When I am working, I have the nighttime schedule. So flipping back and forth sometimes can be tricky, but over the years I figured a way how to do that. So basically what I do is I don't have the downtime before I go to bed, but what I'll do is I will go to sleep for 1 hour at the same time every time I have to go to work. And I get like a little pre-shift nap. And then when I get home, I'll either do something physical like exercise or just hang out with the fam. And then I will go to sleep, and I'll sleep for like 6-7 hours.
Wonderful.
So that's what I've done. And that's what has sustained me all these years. But, everybody's pattern and how they're going to figure out how they would maneuver, manipulate, the light and everything. And then I also sometimes will wear dark glasses on the way home if it's too sunny out when I'm leaving work, just to try to trick my mind into thinking that it's going to be time to go to sleep very soon. So no, that is true. It's always, you have to adapt it to, your lifestyle, obviously. But most people right now, they, like you said, they aren't having to go out to work. So then they can now adapt to a more regular schedule as far as what they do during the daytime, what they do for wind down time, and get as much replenishment as possible during this time, so that your body's gonna be able to work at its best to ensure that you can deal with what we're dealing with and not be compromised. So yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to say that, because you brought up napping, and maybe we should talk about naps just for a couple of minutes. So
sure.
Napping is actually a great way to make up for not getting enough sleep at night. And there is actually so normally, typically for everybody, in the mid-afternoon, there's typically a dip in your circadian alertness, which is why many times you feel sleepy after eating lunch. And so there is actually a time when you can take a nap. And the reason I bring it up is because I often see patients who, once they've retired, they now start taking long naps during the day, and so they can't sleep very well at night. So naps are good as long as during the day you're not napping longer than 25 to 35 minutes. So if you do take a nap because you're at home and you have the ability to do so, don't nap for too long, because that too will interfere with your sleep at night.
Oh, good. That's great. I did not realize that the duration of the nap would make a difference. No, that's great stuff. Okay, awesome. And then, so I know that those that are listening to this show are going to be curious about how they can reach out to you, how they can even, refer people to see you. Can you just let us know how they can contact you and learn more about what you do?
Sure. So I do have a website. It's meetasinghmd.com. I am on LinkedIn. That's how we know each other.
That's right.
And I am on Twitter. It's called @AthleteSleepMD1. And we didn't talk about it, but one of the things that I do is that I have a niche practice in which I work with professional athletes and professional athletic teams with the goal of optimizing sleep and optimizing performance by optimizing sleep. So yeah, that's the easiest way for people to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And these links will also be in the show notes, but I wanted you to say this because that sometimes people are listening to the podcast in their car. Well, hopefully not so much now, but maybe they're doing something where they don't have access to the show notes. So that's why I love that you were able to share that with us. So awesome. All right. Oh my goodness. This conversation has been so good. I mean, I've learned so much. I've been busy writing, taking a whole bunch of notes. And, it kind of saddens me a little bit to come to an end of it, but we do have a tradition on the show, and that is the fill in the blank questions. And are you feel like you're ready? Do you feel like you're ready to do that? Awesome. All right. So the first one is, if I am fearless, I will
survive while maintaining grace and dignity during this period.
Awesome. And then the next one is, to me, fearless freedom means
working on the task at hand without thinking too much about the outcome.
Okay. And Meeta, this is the last one. And I know this is going to be awesome because we all want to hear what your battle cry is.
I think my battle cry always has been to concentrate on just doing the duty or the labor without worrying about the results.
Wow. Yes. And as a result of that, I'm pretty sure that you will continue to step into your greatness because that is very powerful. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We definitely appreciate you putting us into your busy schedule and sharing all of your expertise with us because, it's definitely going to make an impact. It's definitely going to be welcomed to many ears. Okay. So thank you for being on the show.
Take care. Thank you for giving me a platform. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.